Welcome to the Stephen Mansfield Podcast.
Well, welcome to the Stephen Mansfield Podcast. So wonderful to have you with me. Let me dive right into the topic I want to talk about in this podcast. I talked to you in a recent podcast about the fact that many people, especially in our new class of Congress, are claiming that socialism is something we ought to be pondering, that they want to move towards socialism. Some of them even call themselves socialists, and they're proposing socialist ideas, and they're criticizing capitalism, and they're saying our current system doesn't work. And I've said in that recent podcast that those of us who lean to the right, I'm right of center, who believe in the kind of society, the more traditional American society, and I don't mean that, of course, including all the racism and gender bias and things like that, but I'm talking about in terms of our fundamental principles. I want to say that those of us who believe in those things, and I've urged this in this recent podcast, need to be ready to give a reason for what we believe, need to be ready to give an apologetic. There are going to be intellectual debates. There are going to be things said on the college campuses that need to be countered. There are going to need to be things that we're going to have to be able to give an answer for. And I believe I said in that recent podcast that unfortunately, Republicans tend to come with a lot of reactionary anger rather than coming with solid apologetic, solid explanation of the free market system and of the principles that are traditional American principles. Well, having said that, let me add to this something that I think is very, very important. And that is that while I am a conservative, while I am a free market guy, while I believe, of course, in these traditional principles of the rule of law and just weights and scales, as the Bible says, and a level playing field, etc., what we have to realize is that we don't have in this country right now these pure, pristine systems that our country was founded on. And so what we've got to be careful about is that when people in Congress or when people on the campus or when people in discussions and just over dinner criticize the system that we have now and then say we got to get rid of capitalism in toto, we've got to get rid of that entire traditional American system, they are attacking something that we don't really believe in and then calling for the abandonment of the entire thing. Let me explain what I mean. What we have today is not pure free market. What we have today is not rule of law. What we have today is not a fair playing field. I absolutely believe in free markets. I absolutely believe in the development of commerce. I absolutely believe in the rule of law and every man's rights to ascend and to achieve and to perform in every case, regardless of gender, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of background, regardless of socioeconomic level. That's what we all believe in. We believe in America in which people can rise. We believe in a country in which people can achieve. We believe in free markets and a land of opportunity. We can go on and talk about things like a strong defense and what have you, but basically we believe in the rule of law, we believe in free markets, and we believe in the level playing field that the law guarantees so that every man can accomplish and achieve and rise to what his gifts will take him to. We all believe in that. But many of the people who have stepped into Congress in this new class, many of the people in our society, certainly many people on our university and college campuses are attacking the system we have today, and calling it the free market vision, calling it capitalism, but it's not. And we've got to be very, very careful about this. I'm a free market guy. I'm a capitalist guy. I want the condition I just described where every man can arise to his best. But that's not what we have. So what we need is a tempered capitalism. We need reform, not abandonment. We need reform, not revolution. The fact is, when Warren Buffett can report to the world that he pays a lower tax rate than his secretary, then somebody has gotten a hold of the tax code and bent it towards the wealthy. It shouldn't be that way. That's why some of us are advocates for a flat tax. If we had a flat 10% income tax in this country, with no exceptions and deductions, we would take in more money and it would be fairer. I pay many times that in taxes. I'm sure most of you do as well. No exceptions, across the board, 10% flat tax. That's been proven, for example, to level the playing field and reduce taxes overall, but increase our government's income. Now, the only reason I'm citing that is not that I'm trying to push that particular policy perspective in this podcast, but I'm saying here's an example. Our tax code is an example where we have moved away from the level playing field and the rule of law and justice and true capitalism. We have what some people call crony capitalism, which means that some folks in power bent the tax code towards the wealthy, towards their class, towards people who funded them. And as a result, there's a great deal of bias in the tax code. Again, Warren Buffett, one of the wealthiest men on the planet, complains, by the way, he's in favor of what I'm saying. He's opposed to what he was describing. But he says, I pay a lesser tax rate than my secretary does. Now think about that. How in the world did that become the case? How in the world did that become the case? So we have had a system that has been perverted. We do not have a pure capitalist system. We do not have pure rule of law. We do not have level playing field. Do you understand what I'm saying? We do not have just weights and scales as the ancient language is. We've had bigotry built in the law about race. We've had bigotry built in the law at times about gender. We have worked against certain people. We've had bigotry built in the law in our finances. We could talk about a whole range of things, from the way banks give loans to what's guaranteed federally, all the way to campaign finances and finance reform and how that works. And what about the Citizens United case before the Supreme Court? And is money speech, politically speaking? And doesn't that mean that we'll end up with, if we believe that money is speech, then doesn't it mean that we'll end up with a political system that's the best government money can buy, because we empower the wealthy to have politicians in their pocket? You see what I'm saying? So when someone comes out and they attack capitalism and they say our capitalist system isn't working, I respond and say, well, we don't have a capitalist system. We have a tainted system. We have an imbalanced system. People have gotten control of the controls of power, of the stick shift in the steering wheel, so to speak, and have moved it in an unjust direction. So let's not allow people to attack the current system in the name of capitalism. We don't have capitalism. We don't have the level playing field. We don't have just weights and scales. We don't have fairness built into the tax code. We don't. And I'm not complaining, and I'm not a leftist. I'm a conservative who says, let's get back to those values. For example, I'm a pro-business guy. I believe in business. I believe in commerce. I am not in favor of big business buying government. I don't think you are either. So I'm a pro-business guy. I believe in business. I believe in commerce. I believe in free markets. But I am not in favor of gigantic corporations buying government and turning the laws in their direction because they own politicians and pay massive amounts of money to essentially bribe people. Now, I know I'm sitting here sounding like I'm Karl Marx. I'm not. I'm a right-of-center, traditional American conservative. But I'm opposed to corruption. I'm opposed to bias in the law. I'm opposed to the government being bought off. I'm opposed to the little guy being squelched by the swamp. If I'm not, you guys know where I am. Those of you listening to this podcast know where I am on Trump, and I'm only using that word to shorten the explanation, not because I'm a Trump guy. To the extent that he's draining the swamp, great. To the extent that he brought the swamp with him, I'm opposed, obviously. So we've got to be committed to core, true American values, to the ideals, the rule of law, the just weights and scales, the level playing fields, the rich guy having no more privilege than the poor guy when it comes to standing before the law or in the marketplace, to money being handled in such a way and banks being legally required not to have a bias or a bigotry, and so that the little guy can succeed. This is the one part of Donald Trump's platform that I really am in favor of, to the extent he's genuinely about the average guy on Main Street having the same opportunities that his great-grandparents had. I'm all for it. But let's be careful in debate. There's a debater's trick going on here. They're developing a straw man, and that is they attack the current system, which is corrupted, call it capitalism, and then say, let's abandon capitalism. Let's not let that happen. Let's argue for the tempered capitalism, the tempered free markets that made our country great. The government was the watchdog. The government assured level playing field. The government worked against corruption. The government kept an eye on big business and banks and finance. And the government made sure that people had fairness of opportunity across the board. We've lost that. And in many cases, we've got the best government money can buy. It doesn't make me bitter, doesn't make me angry, doesn't make me anti-American, doesn't move me socialist, certainly doesn't move me Marxist. It makes me want to return to the root. Radical, the word radical really means returning to the root, returning to the beginning. So I'm a radical American in the sense that I want what America was built on to begin with. And I think you do too. So let's return to the tempered capitalism that made America great. And let's watch the tricks in the upcoming debates that when they say this is what capitalism has produced, and then they talk about something that's been a function of corruption and of big corporations buying their way through government and of a bias against the little guy, that is not American traditionalism. That is not true tempered capitalism. We're going to be great again, and we're going to do it the right way. But watch carefully in your own debates and in the national debates that this trick is not used against us. And in the meantime, let's be working for a restoration of traditional American greatness.
Stephen Mansfield is a New York Times best-selling author, a popular speaker, and a frequent faith and culture commentator on Fox and CNN. His groundbreaking books on faith and society include The Faith of George W. Bush, The Search for God in Guinness, Mansfield's Book of Manly Men, and Lincoln's Battle with God. Learn more at stephenmansfield.tv.